let's not wait any longer, and I'll just open the evening with a big, warm good evening and warm welcome. My name is Christine. You'll see, well, on my top of the screen is Mel, my partner in crime for Power and Aging. And we have our guests as well, Deanne and Mary, with us, which I'll introduce in just a moment. Most of you know me. I believe, Stephanie, you're new, so you might not know our program. Mel and I have a company called Power and Aging. We help women throughout the wonderful, challenging, and blessed journey of aging. We have an online membership where we do group coaching monthly, as well as the members have access to an online portal, which allows them to open up different themes every month. We have a lot of fun with our membership. We have free events every month as well, master classes, workshops, lots of different things going on. So we encourage you to join our mailing list and come out to some of our events. We would love that. We are now starting with a spotlight series. This is our second event. We had our first event back in November where we introduced a fantastic phototherapy patch that Mel and I both love wearing for our health. And tonight we thought, you know what, we're going to do a service that I have personally been a member for, oh my goodness, probably about 6 years now, and have had to use it a few times that, it's one of those things that you sometimes wish you didn't need to use it. And when you have it, it's like insurance. You're so grateful that you do. So without further ado, I will introduce you to Deanne, who is a very special person, very lovely lady I was introduced to a few years ago. She was one of our guest speakers a year ago, and we're going to look forward to having her back as one of our guest speakers in the fall. So Deanne?
Thank you very much, Christine, and I'm honored to be here, and I'm even more honored to introduce you to the amazing Miss Mary Pichette. And I'm first going to tell you she's a woman of great integrity and humor, and the two go side by side, sometimes with a nudge. She's really, really a lot of fun to be around, but highly, highly knowledgeable. And I don't want to miss any of her accolades, so I'm going to use the notes here. She is a business development consultant and risk management specialist. She has been a successful small business owner for over 35 years, owning multiple companies that generated over $1 million of annual revenue. She's also an award-winning leader in the nonprofit sector and former criminology and law professor. Wow. She shares her enthusiasm with so much infectious humor. It is really, really lovely to be around her. As a social justice advocate for all of her life, Mary recognized one of the greatest injustices that is pervasive on our planet today, and that is theft of identities and no affordable access to legal services. So, theft of our identities and no affordable access to legal services. Whoa. Not only do those things go hand in hand, but we know that theft of our identities is a big problem these days. As a result, she set out to do something about this and is here today to educate us on the 3 biggest mistakes we are making that result in lost sleep and anxious outcomes. Mary?
I'm kind of scared to speak.
I'm never, no, that's not possible. I've never known you to do that before.
Hello, everyone. Hello. And thank you so much for inviting me to share with all of you this evening. It's really a pleasure to be here. I'm going to start by, we're going to jump around a little bit if I can make that work. The reason being, I'm going to start with sharing a video. And okay, how do I do this? Let's see. There we go. I'm just going to have to just give me, oh, okay. Somebody's going to have to tell me because I've lost everybody. Just let me know if you can.
I can't see it. We can just see your email.
We can't see the video.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I've got myself.
I think it's just the wrong screen it's showing. We can hear it, but we can't see it.
Okay.
We could hear the video, but we couldn't see it. I think we could see your WhatsApp, so maybe you have to just select a different
Okay.
screen for sharing. Uh,
Okay, well, I'm not going to take all your time with this, except that, all right. Allow me, ladies and gentlemen, I knew I was taking a bit of a chance by bringing this video in, but it's so powerful.
Do you
If
want
you
to
just have that popped up on the front of your screen and then start this screen sharing, that should work.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's try that. Okay, so I'm going to open this, and then I'm going to come in and screen share. Yeah, the screen shares. Oh, here we are. Okay, let's just see if we can. Here, got it now?
yes, we see a video now. Yep.
Okay, we'll just start again.
And then you want to go to the corner and make it full screen. You see that's there on the right-hand side.
Hey, Mom. Hey, Dad. It's me, Ella. Well, a digital version of me. Just a bit older. Amazing what technology can do these days, isn't it? All you need are a couple of pictures, like the ones you share on social media, where they can be taken and used by everybody. I know, for you, these pictures are just memories. But for others, they are data. And for me, maybe the beginning of a horrible future. A future where my identity can be stolen just like that. Where I can go to prison for things that I would never do. Imagine my credit score being destroyed, Dad. Or my voice copied to scam you, Mom. Mom, I'm in trouble. I need you to send me money, please. I don't want to become a meme, humiliated by everyone at school.
Kill yourself, you fucking loser.
And I certainly don't want this. What you share online is like a digital footprint that will follow me around for the rest of my life. I'm telling you this because I know you love me and would never do anything to harm me. So please, Mom, please, Dad, protect my virtual privacy.
So that's what I'm here to talk about a little bit tonight, along with offering affordable legal services. But let's just start there. Often when I show this video, it's just like you're probably experiencing some sort of shock and what now? So my first question tonight to help ease the stress of this is, first of all, if you have children, you want to take what you just saw seriously. This has multiplied in extremeness just in 2024 because of what's happening with AI and the rapid development. So that video was produced in 2023. My question for everyone is, what could you do about it? Do you have the ability to address those concerns You see, for the most part, the stress around identity theft isn't stopping it, because you can't. You can prevent what happened to that little girl by not showing and sharing pictures of children anywhere on social media. I mean, anywhere. Let's go back to the good old-fashioned photographs and scrapbooking. I'm a scrapbooker, and cart those around and start sharing what we want to share that way. But nothing that's going on social media with children is protected. So what now? And what can you do about it? And I have a solution and the ability to provide that for you. So just switch back here and just, okay. So we've talked about the biggest mistakes that no one is talking about, and you've just been introduced to, a very raw example of failing to plan or protect ourselves with identity theft. I'm not going to run through a lot, but email attacks are up. And bear in mind that if you are a business owner, especially if you're an online business owner, that is the target for identity thieves today. Okay. In Canada, our most sought after identity is actually our healthcare data and our healthcare numbers. So while we know we have our, free and accessible medical, it's something that's in high demand all over the world. All right. And the vaccine passes that we were all carrying for a while, we discovered sadly that there was no protection on those whatsoever. So it was one other way that our health information. So you're thinking, what would that have to do if someone got my health information? So about 6 years ago, a friend of mine who fortunately had our identity protection services, he's a pilot. And he went in because pilots have to pass a health check every year. And he went in and for his annual checkup, and the doctor did the full checkup and came up, and he's turning pages and I don't know what's happened, but man, how did you get away with this? The last 4 checks, your blood pressure is through the roof. Pilot says, my friend says, what? I haven't been here. I'm here. And he says, no, while you were in Nova Scotia. So long story short, his identity had been stolen and someone was using it to receive health care in Nova Scotia. Now, here's the challenge. And this is what happens over and over again. You see, oh dear, we'll just let the Nova Scotia people know that it was the wrong person. No, you won't. You now have to prove that the Nova Scotia person was not you. And that's proving a negative. Immediately, for my friend, his pilot's license was suspended immediately. He flew for a large international, one of our main airlines. And now he had to prove that that wasn't him. But regardless, he had to go 1 year with a normal blood pressure, not allowed to work during any of that time. And for a brief period of time, there was an accusation which suspended him from all benefits. So, being put on a temporary layoff, et cetera, because the allegation was that he had fraudulently misled his employer. In the end, it took him 17 months to get his job back. And because he had our services, he was able to take the benefit of a social media specialist who did whatever it took, a private investigator, and restored his identity. So he brought somebody on his side. So when you cannot do that, it takes 4 to 6 years to repair your own identity. Now, this is just one story of what's starting to happen everywhere. Now, this was 6 years ago, but those of us working in this industry, educating about the costs of identity theft, and the biggest cost is we just don't know. I don't think anybody joined us tonight because you lost sleep last night worrying about your identity being stolen. Maybe you should have, but it isn't something. So, and then the other part of what's being stolen is our reputation. So if you're writing blog posts, you have competitor websites, social media review sites where people are writing reviews about you. forums that you're participating in discussion, Twitter, Reddit, well, X. All of these now have your reputation online, and anybody can go in, take it over, and suddenly everything that you believe in is twisted. You can, as we know, people are getting washed over very quickly with negative reviews, and it's wiping out businesses. So another example, my own Twitter, now X account, I was having it examined through my identity protection services because it came up as in 2013 and 2017, and had been taken over by a far right, very, very violent, racist militia group. And my name and reputation were being used to promote, not only promote, but recruit people to these beliefs. And don't ask me why it was 2013 and again 2017. So I sat down, worked with my identity theft specialist, and he went through everything. We put all of my identity on alert for 6 months. The biggest thing was to go digging through the dark web. Was my reputation being used elsewhere in this racist right-wing belief to promote and sell merchandise as it had been? I asked myself why. I'm not that famous or, I'm not an influencer by any stretch of the imagination. But once upon a time, I did host fairly high-profile fundraisers, and I had a lot of politicians involved around the issues and speakers. And honestly, I think it was, and that's about the only time I used my X account, was to promote fundraising, or very specifically around an issue that was front and center in the news or for fundraising purposes. And I did have some influence in political circles for that purpose. So why not go after my Twitter and then have access to all of the people that I had access to? So you can be guaranteed that somewhere out there, your virtual path has already been attacked, and someone posing as you is going to put their character forward. Now, my Twitter account, X account, got completely cleaned out. As I said, we left it 6 months. We did find one other area on the dark web where my reputation was being used to sell merchandise. It wasn't guns, but it was some ridiculous violent weapons. And people were claiming to be me and offer that. So it's critical. It's critical to securing credit. It's security to getting your promotion. And I know most of us are in a different season of living, so we're not seeking promotions. But just as much, we're vulnerable crossing the borders, any borders. We're in a season where perhaps you're traveling more now. But you're also in a season where your own grandchildren or children are, so vulnerable to exploitation. And the way that will happen is your voice and your face will be used. We saw the example where the child called mom and dad for help, but we hear all the time of grandparents receiving calls from grandchildren saying, help, send $1,000, I'm going to go to jail, or more, send 10,000. So these are the kinds of ways that without any protection, we wait until it happens, and then we hope that it will. So we want to know, well, what do we look for in a protection plan, as I've talked about these? And you need to know how long have they been in business, because today, this is one of the problems front and center. And what do business owners do? They solve problems. But there's two sides to every coin that has to do with identity protection, because there's also individuals out there disguising themselves as protecting your identity while they're stealing it. And so you have to be very considerate of who are you going to partner with and give them your identity so that they can monitor. Not that you give it to them, but have it. All right. Will the identity protection, you need something that covers all of your family. Okay. You need something that gives you reimbursement if you are violated and there's a cost involved. Okay. But the biggest thing is having restoration services. Now, nowhere in Canada is there a service that's offering restoration. The service I'm going to recommend to you, called Identity Shield, is 30 years in business. So long before there was even an internet, the founders of our company's over 55 years old, recognized that one of the greatest injustices that was already rampant, but was coming, was the theft of identity. Why the injustice? There is not anywhere that you can go to. Your identity is stolen, you report it to the police, and they're going to say, oh, well, when you find out who stole it, come back to us. Well, how do you find that out? See, when your identity is stolen, you're thinking, well, I'm not ever on the internet. I'm very careful. I've got malware protection. I don't give my information to anybody. But you have. Your doctor probably has it. Maybe the hospital has it. Now, one of the most recent breaches, and every breach that comes out is bigger than the last one. But of course, it's the power light breach of all the schools across, or many schools across all of North America, going back to school records in 1968. And in some schools, they've gone as far back as 1962. So they've stolen identities from kindergarten all the way through to grade 12. Now, why is this so significant? Well, school records contain a lot more than just whether you got A in science and B in English. They include your parents. They include social insurance numbers. They include addresses. They include emergency contacts. Can you see how by getting into the school data, I can start to build a very robust identity? And so this being the absolute most recent. So the Hamilton School Board has spent already $58 million on a ransomware breach they experienced coming on a year now, only to be breached a second time with the new, with this one where they Powerlight stole the identities were stolen right across North America. So you need to know, will they cover, if you're looking for protection and someone you can rely on, someone you can call 24 hours a day, all right, are they protecting your privacy and your reputation? And can you call them 24/7? Let's say a granddaughter, a grandson calls a niece, a nephew at 4 o'clock in the morning to say, help, I need $10,000. They're going to put me in jail. And it will be their voice that you will hear. The identity thieves will have dressed it up and be absolutely certain that they are now prepared with this to answer very personal questions. So you might ask a question to verify that it's your niece, nephew, son, daughter, and they're going to have the answer. So you want to be able to say, well, just before, stay on the line with me, and you want to call your 866 number 24 hours a day and have an identity theft specialist come right in right now and verify or walk you through how to verify. Okay. So when your identity is stolen, then you also need access to legal counsel. Okay. How many devices do they protect? So I went back to say, how old is the company? How long have they been around? So there's all kinds of new companies popping up that are saying, I'm going to look after your identity. What they're really doing is simply monitoring your credit. They're not monitoring your reputation. They most definitely are not monitoring your children's character. In fact, let me ask you, when you were raising your children, or if you're raising them now, or grandchildren, were you checking their credit scores? Were you looking at their identities and making sure that at 5, 6, 8, 10 years old, their identities had not been stolen? No, we weren't. Every time I show the video, we started with, everybody's just like, oh, I never even thought. I don't check my child's identity. No, you don't. There's a book that was published in 2008 by Adam Levine, and it's just called Our Identity. And it's largely about the value of stealing children's identity, the value in stealing it for getting, buying houses, opening lines of credit, long before anybody knows this has happened. But it's also very valuable in the world of human trafficking. You can give a human trafficked victim the identity of a child in North America who's, 12, 13, 14, which is typical age of human trafficked children. And you give them this, and they're looked up online, and you see a happy-go-lucky child. It's very, very difficult to identify that the person in front of you, or the child in front of you, is in fact being human trafficked. So these are the kinds of things that do cause us to lose sleep now that you know about it. And finding a good service for that is, so you may have a service already that says, hey, my bank looks after me. Your bank is following only transactions. They're not looking after your children, your passport, your driver's license, anything that's out there is your identity. And I started to say earlier, your identity, you think, well, it's not going to get taken, I don't use it, but it is stolen elsewhere. Wherever you give, you'd use a credit card. And then, as I said, now it's all been taken. Our school data has been taken. So identity thieves aren't interested in you and your phone. Okay. They're interested in the places you go. That's why we're always hearing about big companies, telecoms companies, drugstores. Can you imagine, especially in this day and age where there's so much contention and divisiveness in politics? If I really want to go after you, all I need to do is get a list of your prescriptions through hacking a pharmacy or the distribution center for the prescriptions. And now I can start posting online that you're getting treated for depression. You may have treatment for heart disease, reproductive treatments for women. I mean, there's all kinds of things that can come up and be ugly, ugly exploitation in public media, which is, tear people down is how we want to spend our time. So if I have all your your prescriptions, I'm going to know way more about you and your medical problems through hacking your prescriptions. Finding specific medical information by hacking the hospital is very difficult, but getting your prescriptions, it tells me a lot more about you. So you've maybe looked at Equifax, TransUnion, okay, or a few of these other ones. Your insurance company may have offered you some identity protection. So these are a few things. If you are involved with any of these, let me tell you what Thomas Sheraton said. He's the CEO of Equifax International. He said, if you're using our services for credit checks as a way of protecting your identity, that's like plugging your fire alarm in, your smoke alarm, plug it in, turn it on Saturday night and hope the fire comes before Sunday. That's how effective it is. It doesn't work at all. And the average theft of your identity is not announced until 18 to 24 months after it's been stolen. You don't even know that it's out there. It's already being used. Okay. So Identity Shield is a 30-year-old company. All right. And the biggest thing we're offering is full identity restoration. I told you about my friend, the pilot. So he was able to pick up the phone and call, and a private investigator partnered with him and did all the work of restoring his identity. His lawyers then got on board. They wrote letters. They, talked to the medical system in Nova Scotia. And as much as that got sorted out within 4 months, he still could not work because of the regulations that he, regardless of the fact that it was fraudulent, these false blood pressure readings, he still had to wait a year and go 12 months with that. So you're going to have that. You're also going to have those certified identity theft specialists looking after you 24 hours a day if you need to make a call because there's something that you're unsure of. So our affordability on this is it's only $14.95 for one person with 3 devices being looked after. But we provide not only award-winning company, we do the monitoring and the alerts. We monitor your privacy and reputation through your social media, but we're also providing you with malware protection, virtual private network on your phone, VPN, we call it. So when you're using your phone, even just casually in a coffee shop, but you may have to look something up at the drugstore or the bank. Your phone is wrapped in bubble wrap and no one can find you or find it. It may, what VPN does is it allows the Wi-Fi connection that you're hooked up to is bouncing all over the world and your phone cannot be hacked. Okay. And then of course we have a password manager, which prevents theft of your password. Sometimes we don't think that's a big deal, but let me tell you that on the dark web, your Gmail password sells for $156 US. Because once I can get into your Gmail, I'm going to know a lot more about you. When are your vacations? How often are you traveling? What are your plans? Who are family? You're passing emails back and forth to have a 50th anniversary party, or maybe what are those parties called when a baby reveal? Gender reveal. So any of those, that's all in your emails. So these are some of the, hopefully, making ourselves more aware of the risks we have with our identities, which have already been stolen, but now they're going to be used. Just want to talk about one other kind of identity theft that's very, very challenging. It's called synthetic creation. I want you to think if you, and it comes right out of the video that we saw, her identity was synthetically created from pictures and information on Facebook. But what that means, she was still a child as they did that. But a synthetic is I steal identities from many people. And so then I use Mary Pichette's name and birth date, but maybe I use Miss Deanne Lenson's address, credit cards, and then I throw in Miss Christine Dayer's passport information and Mr. Rick's medical. So now I've got what's called a synthetic identity. It comes from all bits and pieces of everyone. And I'm going to choose one, but let's say I'm going to choose to create the identity of Mary Pichette using all these other bits and pieces. I just want you to think, how hard would it be to unravel that if you had to do it on your own? So you want that security. So when you go to bed at night, you just go, not a problem for me, because I know not if, but when it happens, I already am looked after. So that second big mistake that we're making that gives us anxiety, or should give us anxiety, is that we fail to plan for death or an accident. Perhaps I should have paused and let everybody kind of go after the identity theft. I'm here to help you relax, but all I'm doing is escalating your anxiety and giving that. So we fail to plan for death or accident, and only 76% of Canadians, 76% of Canadians do not have a legally sound will, power of attorney, or living will. All right. So if you haven't got yours done or recently updated, now in Ontario, the Estate Act was rewritten and became active legislation on January 1st, 2022. So if you happen to have your will done before then, you maybe want a lawyer to review it and to ensure that it's legally sound in alignment with the new legislation. Many provinces are changing their legislation as we speak because families are no longer what they used to be. 52% of families in Canada are what we refer to as blended families, okay? Single parent families. There's just so many different combinations of what we call family today. The traditional Estate Act, which kind of mother, father, assumed that mother and father, there's grandparents. There were so many assumptions there, and none of them are accurate today. And it makes it very, very difficult to distribute estate assets when there's no will. So our estate acts are catching up with the reality of our lives today. And only 14% of business owners have a succession plan. So what happens if you die without a will? So just quickly, well, your children or grandchildren are going to go through a court system, even if there's a spouse. And how could that possibly happen? Mom passes away, may that never happen. But you only need one person to come forward, because remember, there's no will. So there's been no named guardian for the children or your grandchildren. One person has to come forward and make accusations about the surviving parent and said, I should be looking after them. And that can throw everything into court. So the assumption always is that the surviving parent is going to look after them. But that also means that surviving parents that are in jail, active in drug, alcohol, gambling addictions, they can be given custody of the children, only to have those children apprehended, 8 months later, and put through the ringer. So these are the kinds of absolutely horrific tragedy for children to have to face of that. When you die without a will, your assets cannot be dispersed. Currently, it's taking up to 3 years on average to get into court to name an executor to disperse the assets. Your court will name a trustee, and the assets will all be distributed according to the legislation, not according to your wishes. The big thing there is there, of course, will be no charitable donations to your church or your favorite charity. Be that whatever it is, the local food bank or the SPCA, you don't get a single penny in donations when you die without a will. Now, the other thing of concern is that your bank account, many people say, I've got a joint account. Yes, you do. But bank to bank, manager to manager, because there's no legislation governing this. So my husband, George, passes away. and we have, say, $20,000 in our readily accessible account, and I go and start withdrawing it all. And the bank clerk says, oh, Miss Pichette, what's happening? I said, oh, George passed away. Click, the account's frozen. And she said, oh, I'm very sorry to hear that. But you see, you have a joint account doesn't mean you have permission to clean the account out. George is also on the account and owns the account. So they say, well, can you bring in your will and then we'd be happy to release all the funds? Well, no, I don't have a will, but here's the death certificate. Sorry, we need a will. So all those assets, cash assets in the bank can be, I froze it. So the person you want to talk to is your local bank manager. If you don't have a will, just, what would happen if I passed away? I'm writing my will, but maybe I'll die before I finish it. Okay. Any vehicle that you drive dies. The insurance on that vehicle dies when you die. Okay. If you own rental properties, then you're required by law to lock them down until somebody can show you a will. But if you are a rentor, and the landlord has legal right that he can lock it. So how could that possibly happen? Well, a wonderful gal, she was in her mid-70s and actually early 70s. Her common law partner of 14 years passed away. He had a heart attack or a stroke, and she spent the next week in the hospital with him, and he died without a will. So she went back to their rented place, and the landlord had already locked everything up. Now, all her possessions were in there, everything he owned and she owned. Now, the lease on that, their rental lease, was in his name only. Her name wasn't even on the lease. The landlord would not let her in. Now, by law, the landlord was doing the correct thing. We might think it was very heartless. Maybe there's more to the story. I don't know. All I know is she was grieving the loss of her husband, and now she's homeless. And that's the vulnerability of dying without a will. You're dead. There's no vulnerability for you, but look at what the consequences can be for your family. Okay. And of course, taxes, and you're going to pay way, way more in taxes dying without a will. Okay. As a business owner, you need to think about who owns the business, who will run the business. It'll only be the executor in the event, even if you do have a will, but without it, the business stops. Everything about it has to stop. The other thing you want to think about is, are your insurance policies up to date? The things that stop us, I don't need a will, everything will go to the kids. That's not accurate. And it varies province to province. But this can be also very problematic. Everything goes to children. Perhaps there's a child with an addiction challenge, or maybe you gave one child money for a down payment and therefore they shouldn't be included in the rest of the estate. I don't have anything. There's nothing to tax. There's always something. A vehicle is something, but it isn't about having anything. It's about the things that have meaning to the family. Not everything has cash value. One is I can write my wishes on a paper, and perhaps you've done that and be done with it. There's a certain truth to that. The thing is it legally sound? It only takes one person to challenge your estate if you've written it on a piece of paper. Now, thinking, there are many will templates available online, and there are services that are available online, and they offer you a service, and it will include, a lawyer will review. What they basically are is templates, which were prepared by lawyers. The problem is they don't allow for anything out of the ordinary. Do you have a child with a disability? Maybe you want to disinherit one child for various reasons. None of that can be included. You may have 2, 3, or 4 properties. There are some very complex matters. There are simple matters which end up being very complex because they weren't properly set up in the will. So even a will that claims to be looked after by a lawyer, but does not include you having a conversation or conversations with lawyers about your own estate plan, can be very problematic. Now, often it's too expensive, and that's why people don't do it. So again, you can have, it's affordable, it's easy, it's a $45 a month membership charge, it's month to month, okay? And you have a dedicated law firm that works with you. You're going to talk to the lawyers. They'll prepare your last will and your power of attorney and your living will. And the membership includes 2 wills, power of attorney, and 2 living wills, or health registration, okay? And anything else. Are you downsizing? Do you need to sell? I mean, how many nights sleep have you lost or been, not thinking like, oh, my life is changing. Gee, I never thought about, who's going to look after me if I get sick? Because without a power of attorney, the hospital system, the medical system across Canada is going to act based on the legislation governing their professions. And they must do everything to keep you alive. Now, my brother had a bad car accident, pardon me, not a car accident, but it's in a work-related accident. He's a professional golfer, and his arm and hand was very badly damaged. Now, fortunately, his wife actually had power of attorney. They had set the documents up because while he was being assessed and he was in a coma, they wanted to amputate a couple of the fingers on the right hand. Not a big surgery as day, but as a professional golfer, it's drastic. So she said, absolutely not. And she could say that, and they had to listen to her because she had power of attorney. They could save the hand and the fingers. They had to do a lot more surgery, rewiring and reconnecting tendons, and they did all that. And he continues to be a professional golfer to this day. He plays in the Canadian last 2 years, 3 years, made it to the Canadian seniors, and placed very well in those. So that's the kind of thing that we need power of attorney for. Without that, the doctors didn't have to listen. Yes, she's his wife. Yes, she has influence. But it costs a lot more, and you have to bring in hand surgeons and tendon surgeons, which are all available. But the medical system making decisions are generally pragmatic, and they're governed by must do everything to keep them alive, which is why some people who, against their will, and they've had a stroke and they've made plans, and the system has to keep them going. So these are things in your health directive, and you want to prepare those while you're of sound mind, and you want to have these talks with the people around you. I always say getting your estate ready, your will, is simply a matter of having a conversation. It's about talking to the people around you and framing it. You're here this evening because an hour or $45 a month instead of, which is, about $600 a year, which is the equivalent of 1.5 hours, or unlimited. So these are all the things that we deal with in uncertain times: floods, fires, compliance, okay? And these are the things that we can eliminate all of this and take care of those uncertainties by having that lawyer present, by knowing that our identity is looked after. Your lawyers can look after giving you unlimited contracts, personal advice, reviewing contracts, helping you with tickets. They'll go to court with you. We offer civil trial defense. We will protect you and walk with you through a CRA audit. And we have 24/7 emergency protection. So if you're pulled over in the evening and the police can't give you any reason for why they pulled you over, but they want you to get out of your vehicle, you would tap the app on your phone, because that's what we do. We make sure that your lawyer is available to you by tapping an app. And what is mistake number 3? Causing us anxiety and stress and aging us. We don't have the conversations we need to, talking about mistake number 1 and mistake number 2. And that's it. It'll never happen to me. I'll get it done and then I'll die. My identity's online. It doesn't matter. It won't affect my family. All of it matters. And tonight, you've taken the time to look after your family, to protect your identity by becoming informed on these matters. But mostly, I want to thank you for spending time with me and looking after your children and your grandchildren by getting your will and estate properly done, by protecting your identity and giving yourself peace of mind, knowing that you have someone you can call 24 hours a day with sound advice, professional advice in any of these areas. So I welcome questions if you would like. I know you have a format for opening the lines, and may have a few other things you're bringing on board. So I'll stay on and answer questions if anyone has them. I most sincerely hope this was of service and helpful to you. I'm sure that Christine and Deanne are able to answer any more of your questions. Melanie as well. And, you may want to do a little deeper dive on this, and I'm available as well to help you get your questions answered. If you wanted to follow up and be sure that it was, you've got the information you need.
Thank you, Mary. That was wonderful. So many things were flashing through my head as you were talking. My Aeroplan account was just totally ripped off as well when you were talking about that. And I called them. I'm like, I had over 100,000 points. And they're like, well, it shows that you had 3 flights. And I said, I didn't take any flights. And it went to this whole thing. And they said, oh, they must have got in through your Gmail, because then they have to like approve each time. So I had to change my Gmail. I had to apply to get my points back. And such a hassle. And that was
Yeah.
just one thing. And I don't
Yeah.
know what else it affected, right?
Well, and if somebody is in your email, hopefully, you want a identity theft specialist now going through the dark web. Like I said, when my Twitter account got stolen, I put my identity on alert for 6 months. And they went looking, where else is it being used? So I would, in your shoes, I would be saying, okay, this is a lot more than just missing out on 100,000 points, which is awful. But the minute they said, well, there were 3 flights, somebody has your identity that they were able to get through and order. There's a lot more taking than just booking the ticket. You got to get through the airport. You got to show pictures. So, yeah.
Pauline has a question.
Yes.
Hi. Hi, Mary. Thank you. I'm in the States. So someone in my family is going through divorce, and it's coming close to the end of it. It's been a long journey and a dirty lawyer on the other side using terrible tactics. So
Yeah.
what happened is my family member got emails just this last week accusing her of all kinds of things. And, putting her mind like, oh, crazy. And she found out from when she went to the police in New York, this is New York, they assigned a detective to her case. And it was because, have you ever heard of the Proton, Proton company? It's in Switzerland. So it's even out of the country. And they're working from there, and it's really hard to get them off your case. Have you ever heard of them?
I don't think so. I have heard of a company called Proton that helps protect people's anonymity. It may be that company. I don't know.
Yeah, but it was all, very accusatory, and her reputation.
Yeah.
So, yeah, all kinds of bad things that might affect her court case.
Yes.
Which really, yeah, this is bad. So anyway, there is a detective on the case, so that should help maybe. I don't know. Do you think? Because
There's a couple of things around this.
Mhm.
First of all, one of the areas with the identity protection that I talked about, if you don't have it and your identity is stolen, and you know that it's stolen, that's kind of, we will help you, but we won't provide the private investigator. That's like your house is burning down and you run down the street and say to the insurance guy, my house is burning down, but the fire truck's on the way. I need insurance.
Yeah.
It's so, however, there are other things, like I had someone go through exactly the not that all that mess, but a similar situation, and the legal protection we can offer, they will write cease and desist letters. She could have them do a little deeper dive. She may be just getting the advice of, shut down all your social media. I mean, there are many, many women, especially survivors of stalking. They're just not on, they cannot be on social media.
Okay.
Period. So
Okay.
she does have things that she can do. And if I was in her shoes, I would want to talk to a professional.
So like a professional would be a detective? No? Yes? No?
Detectives don't know a lot about social media. I would want to talk to like an identity theft protection specialist.
Okay. Okay. And you don't work through the States, right? You just do Canada?
No, we're all in North America. We're across North America.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that would be great. Okay, so I'll get that information. Maybe you can put it in the chat, how she
Okay.
could do that in the United States. Thank you.
Okay.
I'll send you that as well, Pauline.
Thank you so much.
And
For the price of ID Shield, to be able to have everything else in her life looked after is absolutely priceless. It has saved me so much. And I own a company, and I am a distributor of spa products, and I renewed my liability insurance, and just on a fluke, I sent the documents to the lawyer just to review, and they came back to me and they said, you're not covered for two of the things that you do. You're covered for training in your offices and hands-on, but not in somebody else's spa. I was out there, and my people were out there touching people with no insurance. I mean, and that was a free call. And they came back to me within 24 hours and said, we should talk. Really powerful stuff, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
I've had to use Legal Shield a few times as well. And, it's one of those things where I I wasn't sure what to do with the situation. And then I was like, oh, wait, I have Legal Shield. I can get some legal advice totally free. Like, I was on the phone for over an hour with,
Yeah.
professional lawyer, the one in your area. Ours is in Toronto. And they, they're really quick. Like, what are you calling about? Which area of law, right? And then I was able to say this, and they said, okay, well, then you're going to want to speak with this, person. And they called me back, and they were really good, professional. They they explained it to me, so I knew where I stood. Mel and I also had some documents reviewed. Actually, we were looking at a contract. I don't know if you remember, we were looking into doing a retreat in another country, and so we sent them in the contract and had them reviewed. He sent back all of the stuff. We're like, oh, I didn't even see that. Oh, I didn't know this. Like, I'm not a professional contract reader, and
No.
I had an extra set of professional eyes, and then breaking it down for me in a way that I could understand and make an informed decision. So that's just two. I've called at least three or 4 or 5 times, and
Yeah, and for you to have made any of those calls, first of all, to have a contract like that reviewed, and especially when you're dealing with something out of the country, that would have been probably $2,000, $2,500 to get that done. But you had to pay it first, and you don't know that the lawyer's gonna give you the service you need. So that's where my passion, as Deanne so kindly said at the outset, is you don't have justice unless it's affordable. And I think the other thing that provides us with peace of mind and allows us to walk on the planet more confidently is empowerment, which means no matter what situation I'm in. So I took my car in, got it fixed. I called my lawyer ahead of time. I said, I know it's just an estimate, but is there anything I can do to make that more secure? They told me a few things to do. So I went in and to pick up my car at 6:30 at night, pouring rain, out here on the West Coast, cold. And I got there, and the $700 estimate was now $1,200. And I said, no. And he tried to bamboozle me. I knew that. But instead of jumping up and down, being frustrated and upset, or sadly, as some people have done, I'm just going to pay the $1,200. I want to go home. I just stepped back and I said, we're not agreeing. You cannot explain to me why you spent this $500. The estimate says you must call me ahead of time, and you didn't. I'm just going to call my lawyer. So I picked up my phone, and it was 6:30 at night, but this was a warranted emergency. They had my car, and I was trapped without it. I just went to tap the app, and he goes, whoa, no, we're not involving lawyers, because for him as a business owner, that would have been, several $1,000s. But what I was empowered. I didn't argue. I didn't, feel like I have no choices. I was able to just say calmly, I'm going to call my lawyer. Now, then he says, well, there's probably a mistake. Yeah, right. And comes back with a bill for $750 as opposed to $7. Now I might have, looked at it. I said, well, I would like an explanation for the 50 on the 7. And he gave me something that was reasonable enough. I accepted it, paid it, got my car and went home. But, that night when I went to sleep, instead of, one, not having my car and having to, so then the whole issue's carried on the next day. You don't sleep at night. You grind, you got to call your friend. You probably call 2 other friends just to tell them everything that happened. It goes on and on. No big deal. I had my car, got home, paid what I said I would pay, and it's done. And that is the peace of mind and empowerment we're giving ourselves by having these professionals there to look after us when things aren't going right.
I was going to ask, now I know a few people, friends of mine going through like a divorce, for example, and they already have somebody representing them. But would this be a good, like, I know it costs a fortune. Like every time that a partner emails their lawyer, they're paying like $50 per email, 100 something per call. Like the cost is unbelievable. So I'm wondering, is there a way, let's say you've already been working with some lawyer, to use this as like almost like a top-up service or a second opinion, like you would getting medical advice, to use it for different things in your life?
So in the specific thing that you've described, no. The law across Canada at the bar associations is the only way I can go to a second lawyer and get a different opinion is to fire the first lawyer, which is very expensive because I'm going to pay the first lawyer and he's going to ask, or she's going to ask for money for me to fire him. And then I got to pay the second lawyer, never mind if Legal Shield's involved, and get all the documents from the first. So it's a very unwise thing to do. I mean, how did they get away? But so number one, if you've already got a lawyer, you're not going to get a second opinion, and Legal Shield is legally prevented by the bar associations from giving a second opinion in that regard. What a person can do in their situations, it's already headed down the road. Regrettably. So you talk to people. If someone says to you, oh, I don't know, I think I'm going to have to get divorced. This is just too much. That's when you say, whoa, I can help you out. If you have Legal Shield protection, you can call a lawyer and get advice and just ask, what are my rights if I get a divorce? What happens? I'm not talking about, fill out a piece of paper and go to court. But you might want to have very specific questions. My husband and I jointly own 4 properties. The 5th property is only in his name. And, who gets the family residence? What are the laws around that? So you could get some advice. And that way you're making more informed decisions should you go ahead with a separation or a divorce. The other thing we do offer is if you do hire our firm and the law firms locally to your area, you get a 25% reduction on the cost. So I had a gentleman, no, there were no children involved. He said, my divorce is going to cost me $100,000. And he said, I'm going to see if this is real. He'll have the membership for the rest of his life. He went through the divorce and it only, he got the 25% deduction. So he saved himself over $25,000. And because he was eligible for that. There are some criteria. If there's a custody battle, for example, our services are not for you. So just generally, I try and have individual conversations when someone starts talking about divorce. This isn't, I don't recommend our service. If there's children involved, Legal Shield isn't the one for you. And not because we don't want to be, it's just we can do what we can do to empower you and help you. The biggest thing with having legal and also the identity services is they're preventive. You will make different decisions. So I know my identity, I know that. So I had just a very recent event. It's minor, or was it? I got a letter from a credit company that my credit had been checked out and blah, blah, blah. And, here we'll give you this amount. Well, I hadn't made application for any money or anything. Well, it turned out when I was at Best Buy looking at whether or not I'd buy a computer, I said to them, well, online it's cheaper. And they said, well, just give us your name and phone number. Now, I've been in Best Buy before. I didn't think anything about that. Well, they turned around and did a credit check, which, as you know, when you get a credit check, it brings your score down. And I called my identity theft specialist and we're looking into it. And I want that credit check removed from my credit report on principle. But maybe there was more to it. But I'm not worried about it. I just pick up the phone and make the call. So, Lori, I see you got your hand up.
Lori?
Yeah, I have a question about, do you do anything with respect to small claims court claims about, I had a real estate deal, was told the roof was fine, found out the roof was not fine.
Yeah.
So I have it's something I should be able to represent myself. It's not worth me hiring a lawyer, but
Yeah.
it might be helpful to get some opinion. Is that something?
Yes. One of the big things, especially in a situation like you're describing, is a couple of things. I would be talking to the lawyers about whether or not I should sue the real estate. There's law that says if that roof was not properly inspected before you bought the house, the realtors could be responsible for that, not you. You shouldn't be chasing down that money. The other thing that is great about Legal Shield, see, our lawyers are already paid. Now, we've been doing this for 55 years. The lawyers are well paid, well paid, 7 figures and above. So we're a very important client to them, looking after our members. So therefore, they're not going to push you into court. So you can describe this and you can find out who's really responsible for paying for this roof. Is it the realtor? What else? Who else was involved? Was it the business inspector? So that's part one. But part two, let's say you do end up going to a small claims court. Yeah, the lawyers will guide you through it. Any lawyer that says, I'll go to small claims court with you, but it's going to cost you $50,000 or $20,000 is not ethical. Because small claims court, there's 2 challenges. One is small claims court is used typically for things 50,000 or less. That is going up to around 70,000 in some areas. Why would you give that to the lawyer? And going to court is expensive. But the second thing is, after you get a judgment in small claims court, no matter who you are, now you've got the next problem of collecting the debt. And with Legal Shield, your lawyer's going to talk to you about that. They might say, look, it's a $10,000 debt. You're very unlikely, based on the contract we've reviewed and the information you've given us about this company, they're probably not going to pay you. Or have you had a lawyer send a collection letter? Our lawyers will always send a collection letter before you ever go to small claims court. So there's a number of things that could be happening with your Legal Shield membership than just immediately going to small claims court and having that frank advice. I'm sorry, we've reviewed your contract. You're not going to win this. You may feel like, you shouldn't have to pay for the roof to be repaired, but your contract that you didn't get reviewed by a lawyer gave them permission to sell you the house as is. And maybe that's in the fine print. So, there's that, either side of the coin, because our lawyers are paid. They don't advise you to go to court unless you're going to win. High probability that it's going to be settled in your favor.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and again, it's that, peace of mind. You hope you never have to use it like your insurance. You hope your house never burns down, but my goodness, if it does and you don't have it, it's the worst feeling, right?
And we want people to use it. We want to teach each other to be empowered and get those contracts reviewed, like you and Mel did, ahead of time.
Mm-hmm. And it sounds like Mary. It sounds, Mary, it sounds like that you tend to just make those quick calls because like just about your car and things that people wouldn't necessarily even remotely think of doing. So
because we've been taught very intentionally not to defend our rights, and the whole legal system has been priced out. And there's a lot of discussion right now across any discussion board or anywhere else about what is happening to our rights? Well, the path for that was laid long before 2020. It was laid when we all learned early on that only rich people get lawyers, or if our parents ever had to get them, it probably was at the cost of our university education. Yeah. So yeah, Mel, and that's my passion, is that we all learn to be empowered, because once I'm empowered in that area, I'm probably going to be more empowered in other areas, to ask questions, to feel like, you know what, I may have some rights in this situation. And that's often the calls. I'm always saying, phone and find out what your rights are. Not because you're going to stand on the corner of the road with a flag or a sign, but find out if in this situation at your job or medically or in your house where somebody fell down and broke a leg, call a lawyer and find out, what are my liabilities and what are my rights. So yeah, it's amazing how much peace of mind. We've said that word several times here, but it truly is an example of what peace of mind is like.
You also mentioned the follow-up letter, and I think that is a huge thing too, because
Yes.
people will give you advice, but then they expect you to take it. And I mean, a letter coming from me to, a roofing company or a realtor or
Yeah.
whatever, isn't going to sound, but with their legal head and their expert writing and everything like that going out, it looks a lot better. I might get a different result, or, I feel like at least I've made a good shot at it, like a professional.
And very, very often you do get a different result. I mean, the biggest results that are changing, cell phone contracts that aren't honored, refunds from airlines, lots and lots of things that right now, on the roofing matter that you talked about earlier, then they're going to look at your contract. They're going to see what has the correspondence been, what has the dialogue been. But you get legally sound advice. And Google never went to law school. None of the sites. And when people say to you, well, this was prepared by a lawyer, well, really, then I'd like to talk to that lawyer about my unique situation. And of course, there's nobody to talk to. And away we go.
Mary, one of the things that comes up for me as you're saying this is to remember, and you taught me this, that every contract that we are handed was created to the benefit of the person having the contract written, not to our benefit. We should have we never sign anything without having it looked at. And I have to say, I wasn't somebody that thought I'd be calling a lawyer for these kind of questions. It was intimidating. Well, not anymore. They can't wait to help us.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And we don't need to charge by the minute and make it a longer conversation so they can charge us more.
Yeah. Yeah. The other area, I think, since we're, in a venue here about aging well, and I think it's very, very important that as we age, we can be treated differently. I mean, ageism is, in my mind, as real as any other ism. So don't allow yourself to be pushed around. And some of that can be by children, well-meaning friends, if you're doing any kind of downsizing, but absolutely anyone moving into any type of independent living, assisted living, anything, don't do it without a lawyer. Like, let the people that you're moving in with know right off the bat, I may be moving in here. I may not be your wealthiest tenant or whatever terminology they use, but I do have a lawyer. And no, I'm not granting you power of attorney. I'm bringing my lawyer in. I'm having the contract reviewed. I want to know exactly what this sentence means, that I'm provided limited food. Is it 3 meals a day? Is it 1 coffee? I mean, there are really tricky, ugly things in these contracts that are painful. People move in, they pay big deposits, only to find out that, food is provided meant 2 meals a day, or, whatever. But and so these are, given that we're in a venue talking about aging well, these are things we don't like to think about, talk about, or feel, because we might sometimes have to get up in the morning and deal with issues that are specifically related to aging well. Yeah.
Very good point, Mary.
Yeah.
You're in the right group here.
Well, you know, when you guys talked to me and invited me, I said, well, and I gave it considered thought, as you know, Christine, when we were going back and forth, like, and it was interesting as I gave it thought, I thought, and it's because I do workshops with seniors all the time in libraries and senior centers and all various recreation centers around estate planning. And I started thinking more about it in a case that recently, not that it was my case, but a situation that came up for a member, and it was around her mother going into assisted living and had very specific dietary restrictions. All of that had been explained, and they were absolutely assured that if she lived there, those would be looked after. She's there 2 days, and not a single one of her dietary needs was looked after. And there was no, they had agreed to it. They'd had verbal conversations. There was some emails, but it was not in the contract. And what the left hand says in the sales department is not necessarily what the shareholders are in agreement with.
Yeah.
You know?
And I work with a senior community with my brain fitness class as well. I work at different retirement homes, and I see the vulnerability, and some have not planned, and this would be a very good service for them as well.
Oh, absolutely. And but get it sooner than later. Like, one of the other challenges is I did a workshop recently. There was about 40 people in attendance, and so many of them, they got memberships and started working on their wills and estates. In two situations, the children stepped in, angry as mad hatters, which made me wonder why they're so upset that they're, in one case, a mother, and in another, it was an uncle. Why are they so angry? Because they're going to get their wills done. So there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes, and especially as we go into an era of greater and greater scarcity, if that's true, we choose how to think of it like that. But when people see the world through scarcity, they become angry. They become, what's the word I want? Very selfish, and hostile. That's the word, about money. Mm-hmm. And so if I can get my money out of you and you're dying, I'm going to take it. If I can charge you more for your car, if I can get this, if I can get that, I will. And I think that that's another reason to know, no, you can't get it from me, because I talked to my lawyer before I give you anything.
Feels good to say that.
I can't find my hand raised, so I'm just jumping in.
Sure.
I just want to share quickly. So Mary invited me here because I'm a new sign up, and I'll tell you why. Mary brought this to me 2.5 years ago. I signed up for 2 months and I said, yeah, this isn't for me. I don't need it. I'm not using it. I had a lot of different excuses. So she's like, yep, okay, whatever you want, because that's how Mary is. And so now I'm a single income earner, single person. I just traded my car in at Ford. My car was 4 years old. I'm not a mechanic. I don't know one. And not great with money. So I do not have money put away. My warranty was up in 10 days. They gave me notice, said your warranty's up. Do you want to get an extended warranty? And I said, well, what's the cost? So let's look at it. And he said, anywhere between $2,600 and $6,000. Well, my jaw dropped because I don't have that money. And I had just gotten 2 weeks earlier laid off. My last day was on the 10th of February. So I was like, what am I going to do? Because I was like kind of freaking out. He said, do you want us to run your numbers and see if you can get a car? And I was like, yeah, of course. So they didn't know that I was laid off. So, but I thought, if I don't do something now, I'm going to be screwed. I don't have the warranty money. Everything's going to start breaking as soon as the warranty's up, because that's what happens. And so I ended up getting another car, which was great. Super excited. I don't know the ins and outs of a lot of things. And so I just said, just give me the final price and tell me what my payment is, and I'm good to go. And that's pretty much what we did. There was a full tank of gas in the car, so I was happy. And I called Mary. I've known her for 20 years, so she's my mentor. So I said, Mary, I got a car. And she's like, oh, did you get did you go over the agreement or purchase thing? And I'm like, contract? And I was like, well, no, it's like Ford. I've bought there before. I trust them. And she said, well, just so you know, on page 6, there is, or page 2 or 6, there's small print that they just charge you $600 for a car wash. And I was like, what the F? So I was like, she goes, you want to buy Legal Shield now? She goes, you can't change the contract, but you can get them to look at it, and maybe you can go back and say, hey, let's, it's only been 2 weeks, so maybe we can change this slightly.
Yeah.
So yeah. And I was like, yes. And then because I explained to her about being broke and not having the money for the I don't have savings, right? Single income, rent is atrocious, blah, 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 you know the story. And she said, wouldn't it be nice if you had some money coming in monthly? And I was like, yeah, but I've already worked a full-time job. I did not want a second job. And that's when she showed me the other side of Legal Shield, not just having a lawyer, but being able to be covered and have a residual income coming in. So that's where I'm at. And I'm just like, awesome. And super excited about all that. And yeah, so I just wanted to share that. Normally I don't, I just sit in the back and listen, but it's been a really profound change that happened for me at this time.
Good timing with your job and everything too.
Yeah. Thank you, Stephanie. And on average, when someone gets their contracts reviewed before they purchase the vehicle, if you've recently purchased, or in Stephanie's case, the going rate for car washes is $600. And remember, it goes into the financing. And then there's another 12, 14, 16, 1800. It's called administrative fees, but it's hidden. And it's generally hidden in the finance charges. And yeah, there's laws that it all has to be written out, but and it is, but it's written in a way that, so getting your lawyer to review just even the purchase vehicle on a car, new or used, is going to save you thousands.
Sorry, Lori.
Yes, Lori, you got your hand up, and maybe you're running out of time, but.
No, I just have a quick question. So you mentioned something that the left hand doesn't always, the sales department doesn't know what the stakeholders are saying. So I've been recently called several times by Bell wanting to talk about my contract, right? So, and when they called me the other day, they said, well, we want to offer you this much of a reduction on your bill. Can you tell me what you pay each month? And I said, shouldn't you know that? If I'm a Bell customer and you know what your services I'm getting, shouldn't you know that? And I said,
yes,
I'm not talking to you anymore. This feels like a scam. And then I thought, am I just being hypersensitive these days? But okay, so I'm not cuckoo.
No,
okay?
that was very smart. And I mean, there are things we can all do to protect ourselves, and that's one of them. Anybody that calls you, and that's a very good example, it says, I just would like to talk to you about changing your rates. Do you mind telling me your rate? That's a scam call. And absolutely, no matter how nice they sound, no matter what they say, because they've probably done enough background information that they can answer questions you ask or provide you with information. But it's there. And when you tell them the amount of the bill, then they're going to dig a little bit for some financial information. Well, is it on your credit card? We can't see here, but if you did put it on your card, we could save you money, and et cetera, et cetera. So well done. Well done.
Good job, Lori. But it's true. Like, I had literally 3 calls in a row the other day, and it says likely fraud, likely spam.
Yeah.
Like it is just like people
bad.
are on a mission to just.
With our VPN on your phones, you will be notified of that mostly. I mean, the stuff is sophisticated now, but again, I know that I'm protected, and they'll get through. Like, there's nothing. I mean, I don't care who you name as the top guru of cyber, whatever. Those gurus are changing all the times, but nobody's ever going to stop these breaches. So the key thing is, what do I do next? Like when I showed you the video at the outset, what do you do? What do you do? And that is empowering yourself to answer that. So Christine, I'm sure, I don't know timelines. I
No,
neglected
that's
to inform
okay.
myself.
That's okay. This has been so informative. I think this is just what we needed to hear with in our community because, we talk about aging and we don't really talk about the vulnerability.
Yeah.
And,
Well, the vulnerability is at any age, really, but yes, it can be
Yes.
yeah,
a bit more
and
striking.
ways to protect ourselves, legally with our identity, two totally different things
Yeah.
and kind of overlap. So, these are really, really, amazing services, and I'm sure you can attest that, again, the kind of thing that, like insurance, you hope you don't have to use it, but when you have it, it's there, and it's a monthly payment that you kind of just sort of tack on to things
Yep.
like the insurance, and free to cancel anytime if you felt
Yeah, and if you have any kind of a home-based business, which hopefully you do, because that allows you to have tax deductions, even on a pension, you can have business deductions against your pension, which reduces your tax. I'm getting sidetracked, but these are things that people think, well, I'm just doing a pension. There's nothing I can do about my taxes. Absolutely, there is. And so, if you have a home-based business, this is all tax deductible. And, there are other ways that you can be supported around this with the services that can help.
Yeah, and I recommend if you even have anything that you think you might need it for or something you might
Absolutely.
advice on to try it. And if it's not for you, it's easy to cancel.
Well, get your wills and estate updated. And I know many of you are in Ontario but even in New York, actually, but I think it's your friend Lori that's in New York. I think it was you, but anyways.
Pauline's in Michigan.
Oh, okay.
Up.
Laws are changing there as well for estate. And a big chunk of law that's changing more in the US than Canada is how real estate is being handled when someone dies. And, as housing becomes less secure for more people, dying without a will pretty much wipe out any real estate. Yeah.
Get that in order.
Christine, you will send each of our guests your link for the website.
Yeah.
And we will add, I would love to answer any questions that anyone has. And we can also book a three-way with Mary, and she's not going to say no. You see, I kind of put her on the spot, but
and I won't. And thank you. I'm happy to support and answer more questions. And there may be deeper dive not curiosity, but things you would like to know. Like as Stephanie even said, and thank you, Stephanie, for your kind words. Things that we can do to help each other be more empowered financially.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I will be sending a follow-up email tomorrow, and you'll see a link to, getting, if you were interested in the service. There's also obviously an email or a connection call you can make with us, and we're happy to get you more information if that's, the next step for you. So I will say on behalf of Power and Aging, this has been very enlightening. So thank you so much, Mary, for such a wonderful and professional presentation. Thank you, Deanne, for bringing Mary to us. Thank you, Power and Aging community, for coming. We appreciate you, and we will hope to see you at our next event.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And thank you, everyone, for your kindness and everything. So thank you. Good night.
Bye.